To better understand why do we have problems in our retrieval, we need to dive deeper into the query document alignment issue. So this is the happy path of the query document alignment. The user is asking a question. The document that we indexed has this frequently asked question format. So we have the question and the answer. So how many vacation days can I take each year, which is quite similar to how many vacation days do I have. And we have the answer. When we index those documents, we index by the question, then we land in the cluster of the vector index. It's a good time to remember that vector databases usually use some kind of a approximation for the index. Remember that we don't go over each one of the documents and we compare their similarity. Nevertheless, the embedding is a statistical model. It's not accurate. It is always approximation. So the document will land in one of the clusters, and when the user is asking a question, the question will be encoded. Embedding will lead to the same cluster of the document. So this is the happy path. This is what we have in mind when we are using a semantic search using a vector database. But in real life, it's not so easy. Usually we have documents which don't have this kind of a question-answer format. This is a Wikipedia page on one of the topics. And when we are encoding the document, either as chunks or with context and everything, we might land in one cluster that can be much different than the one of the query itself. It's a different format, different length, different terms. The probability of landing in different cluster, and therefore we are not going to retrieve the right document, is much higher. So what do? We have a few options, few solutions. Some of them are in query time. We take the query of the user and we modify it. We can enrich it. We can expand it. So give me few questions that are similar to this question, or can generate an hypothetical document. We're going to talk a bit more about this hide technique. The query time improvements are good because they will handle different types of query that the users might send to us without much information in advance, but they add latency to the process. So when we get the query, we need to send the query to some model, LLM, and generate those improvements. And then we take the output of the first LLM and use that for the retriever itself. And then the documents are sent to the generation model. Overall, it will double the latency and the response time to the user, which is something that we want to avoid. The other type of solutions is in index time. So we are taking the document, and before we send it into the index, we will process it. We already talked about the context enrichment. So we take the document, we take the chunk, we send them together to an LLM, and we get a concise sentence to describe the context of this chunk within the big document, and we concatenate the context sentence and the chunk text and use that as the encoding. It can improve the retrieval. The other option is called hypothetical question. So before we dive into hypothetical question, let's understand the hypothetical document method, hide. The idea here is that when we have a query, before we send it to the index, we will generate, using an LLM, a document that can answer this question. Then we take this hypothetical document and we use that as the encoding text. And this will improve the alignment. So instead of a short question, we will have a longer document. And the format will be quite similar to the original document. And therefore, we can find it in the index. So this is the idea of the hypothetical document, the hide. But as you remember, this is query time. It adds to the latency. And we can do a reverse hide, which will do the same on the document. So instead of generating documents for query, we are generating queries from documents, the reverse side. We take the document and we ask the LLM, please generate a set of questions that can be answered by this document. And then we encode the document using this question in the index. And when the user asks a question, we'll have the alignment of the index, of the query, and the document. So now let's go and check the details of the reverse side using a notebook.